So here's what happened on Wednesday at the Supreme Court in the case that involves Donald Trump's attempt to fire Lisa Cook, who is on a member of the Board of Governors. Lisa Cook is one of the last independent agency officials that remains. Donald Trump has essentially, after he came into office, fired a bunch of them, from the Merit System Protection Board chair to the Federal Trade Commission commissioner to the special counsel and several inspector generals. And the Supreme Court essentially has allowed him to do that. However, the Supreme Court at some point last summer did draw a line in the sand as telling Donald Trump essentially Federal Reserve Board, unlike those other agencies, is really, really particular and special. Congress carved it out particularly to be independent and set it up such, saying that she could only be fired for cause. Donald Trump not only fired her, he did it in the worst possible way, in a Truth Social post, and gave her no opportunity to respond. He alleged some allegations without any evidence to back his allegations. And I'm going to tell you about the allegations later on, because they're actually one of those every accusation is a confession social situation. And he didn't give her any process at all whatsoever. So, of course, she sued. And when she sued at the first level, the district court level, appealed and decided to grant what's called a preliminary injunction, which means while the case is continuing, because lawsuits take forever, because she's more likely to win than not, and because of the balance of interest, we're going to go ahead and let her stay on the job. And their reasoning for allowing her was saying that Donald Trump's allegation was about something that she allegedly did before she was even Board of the Governors, and it doesn't apply. So that's the reason why the stay was granted. Donald Trump appealed to the Court of Appeals. At the next level, the Court of Appeals again said, no, we're going to let her stay on the job while the case continues, because the reasoning the Court of Appeals gave, they said, is because she's entitled to a due process, a hearing. And they said that her job as Board of Governors is a property right. Due process means that before something is taken away from you, your life, liberty, or property, your job, you have the right to face the accusations, defend yourself, and get an opportunity to speak. And she got none of that. In fact, she was promptly fired. And that's it. Now, here's what happened at the court today. So, in the briefing and at the first head out, the Solicitor General, John Sauer, representing Donald Trump — by the way, this person is Donald Trump's private attorney from when he was defending himself in the immunity case — said that he conceded that the Federal Reserve Board is really unique, and it's only supposed to be for a cause, and conceded also that the standards is higher for firing a Federal Board of Reserve. So given that, the justices, like Justice Kavanaugh, mentioned the real world consequences of allowing us to fire someone who you say, according to John Sauer, can be fired for whatever reason without any evidence, and according to your arguments, don't have any opportunity, and you don't have to give them the opportunity to respond. And furthermore, if the courts were to come into play, because this person would assume that at the courts at all levels, the federal district court level, the Court of Appeals, and Supreme Court, has no authority whatsoever to demand they be returned. If you don't know, the way the United States government works is that there's, when the Constitution created three branches of government, under Article 1 is the Congress, Article 2 is the president, and Article 3 are the judges. And we have a balance of power. So when the Article 1 Congress and Article 2 executive passes a law, executes, or does something that's not lawful, the courts essentially look at the facts, look at the law, compare them, and let you know if it's lawful or not. And they will tell you have to change or do something differently based on the law. So John Sauer was straight-faced, was saying that, no, none of that matters. Essentially just rewrite the Constitution, because that's what it is. Who are you saying that we don't have the right to do that? And then the other thing, too, is they characterize it as gross misconduct. And I think it was Justice Gorsuch, I'm not quite sure, said, if it was gross misconduct, why didn't you just have her come down to the Roosevelt Room and clear it up? Because here's the thing. The other thing is that even though the John Sauer said that there was no response, to which, interesting, I think Sonia Sotomayor said, it's so interesting, you're saying that she didn't respond. You're saying Donald Trump's Truth Social post counts as due process, which is like not. But her responding via her lawyer in a lawsuit isn't her responding. Like, make it make sense. The argument, like, essentially doesn't make sense. That's essentially what she was saying. But owing to that, and when we look at the facts, some of the justices did look at the fact at the Supreme Court level, you're not supposed to consider the facts. It's only about the law. But anyway, they just said considering the facts, and let's look at it temporarily. She said that she's being alleged to have filed for mentioned mortgage fraud, saying that she put its primary residence. She got 2 homes, and she said on both applications that it was her primary residence. If you don't know, when you claim primary residence, you get certain perks, you get certain benefits, you get certain tax breaks and things like that, other incentives. So if you claim 2 residents, you're getting perks that's only supposed to be allowed for 1. You can only have 1 primary residence. And it turns out that the person who pulled that, Bill Pulte, works for Donald Trump, is like his director of finance housing agency. He's being investigated. What he did was go through all the files, violating the laws, and went through all the files with Donald Trump's political enemies to look for this. And that's why a lot of times he's alleging mortgage fraud on a lot of these challenges, because they're just fishing for stuff, because they're lawless and they're crazy and they're a band of goons, and that's illegal. It's unlawful. Every single thing they do, the entire administration from the top to bottom, are just full of crooks, is committing crimes. It's like, oh my God. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, so back to the case. So if you say that she's a mortgage fraud. So she says that when she got her mortgage for her home, and she intended to live there because she renovated it, intending to live there. And what happened was she got the job in DC. She said, when I got the job in DC, I amended my mortgage application and submitted an amendment saying this application I filed for a primary is no longer going to be a primary. I've already, I want it, but I'll make an investment. And then so there's a reason. It was a typo. It was like a minor mistake, and she amended it. So if he had just met with her, and that would have cleared it up. He had to fire her. And then ProPublica did a takedown that looked at all these data records, and they discovered that Donald Trump himself, when he was living in New York, his primary residence, he had claimed 2 homes in Florida as his primary residence to get the benefit. So the man committed mortgage fraud himself, and now is trying to kick off this woman with false allegations of mortgage fraud. And also 3 cabinet members and Bill Pulte himself, who is the Donald Trump's finance housing agency director's family, all allegedly, according to ProPublica's records, committed the same sort of allegations, essentially claim multiple properties as a primary resident. Oh my God. And there was no findings of fraud whatsoever. The justices were like, okay, even Justice Thomas and Justice Alito were kind of like, you're just like you're crazy. Like we drew the line in the sand. We told you not to cross it, and you're so crazy. So anyway, it'll be a stain on their credibility to allow Donald Trump to continue. Justice Kavanaugh says you're opening up the Pandora's box. Justice Kavanaugh is the one who not considering the real world implications of himself in the LA case, saying that it's okay to look at ethnicity as long as it's not the only factor, and there's no big deal. Essentially giving ICE the green light to do all the terror they've been doing, destroying lives. He tried to course correct it. In a recent case in Georgia, and have a footnote to say, no, you're not supposed to consider race. But anyway, essentially he's saying, the justices were saying, if you were to say that because Congress didn't explicitly say or notice an opportunity to respond is in the actual statute, that means you don't get it. But there are lots of statutes that go all over the places. And then we look at the jurisprudence, the case history, oftentimes we just assume, and you should assume, that if we were to allow you to do this firing, even on a temporary basis, for no cause, no evidence, no opportunity to respond, no opportunity to appeal it, and the judge can't do anything about it, essentially it's turning it into an at-will, which is a form of employment, meaning people can fire you for whatever reason. And that's not the case here. You already conceded it's for a cause. So anything that's for a cause usually also comes with it levels of due process and notice and opportunity to oppose. So that's for the most part. I think it's going to be a 9-0. I think all justices are going to say he can't do that because they already kind of signal that this is special, and they drew the line, and he's just crossing it with Lisa Cook. And we saw recently he's like threatening, or he denied it, but whatever, he threatening and have DOJ investigate Jerome Powell. You're not supposed to try to manipulate the stock, the interest rate. And it's specific because it'll make the economy tank, because the market relies on consistency and stability and independence. So Yeah, I think it's gonna be a 9-0, possibly 7-2, maybe even 6-3 if they're saying, well, we're like holding off and let the case continue. But we already know by now the implications of them doing that is devastating and can tear up the markets and destroy the economy. So I don't think they're gonna do it. I think it's gonna be a 9-0 decision against Trump on this one. So that's my decision. That's my bet. Let's see if this comes true. Change illegal, each one teach one. Share this video so more people know. Let's discuss below if you have any thoughts on it. So I covered this today earlier.